International Women's Day is devoted to women around the world, celebrating achievements and recognising challenges that they face. I'm with Victoria Burns, who's recently joined as Vice President, heading up our new office in Dallas, Texas, to chat about her journey as a woman in a senior position. So, hi Vic. First of all, I'd just like to start with how you actually got into the recruitment industry and your journey so far. So, yeah, do you want to give us a bit of background on that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So kind of just without glamorizing it, I finished university and I was just really eager to make some good money. I was one of those students that, had to work throughout university. I've had, jobs since the age of 14. So I kind of always envisioned a certain lifestyle for myself, and I was very eager to complete my studies. So I had a few friends that introduced me to recruitment, and honestly speaking, kind of fell into it. I kind of went in a little bit blind. I didn't know what to expect initially, but kind of quickly realised I fell in love with it. I loved the relationship that you built. Recruitment has its highs and lows, but I love that you kind of get out what you put in. I think kind of where my journey really did kind of spring is when I first, got into leadership, and I realised that was my true passion, and it kind of went from there, kind of building teams and business units to then also creating 2 offices myself.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. And I think there's no denying that there is still a shortage of women in leadership positions. So what would you say some of the main challenges that you faced are like to date and throughout your career?
I would certainly say, like, early in my career, I found it harder to advocate for myself and challenge ideas due to the lack of representation of women in leadership. I didn't look up and see all those women, so you kind of often would feel you were indifferent, fear of embarrassment for having different opinions. So I just found it more of a struggle initially, and I'm someone that hasn't ever really been shy, so that was something I had to really struggle with in the corporate world. Leadership equates to initiative, and we're all provided with opportunities to take initiative, but there's situations for women that would want to take initiative, and I can speak firsthand, but I just didn't feel comfortable because of that lack of representation and that almost that safety. So that was something, when I came into the industry, that I had to really kind of learn and develop, myself on, I guess. And then I'd say the second thing is probably going to be, prejudice in the industry. I'd say there's certainly kind of less opportunity for females when it comes to us interviewing with potential employers and companies. I've kind of speak firsthand. I've had multiple interviews where people have asked me, plans for family, being that I am senior. So kind of they're wanting to almost examine me and my skill set on how quickly I want a family, which is just not appropriate. So I'd certainly say that there's still, work to be done in the industry for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, in that position and what you've experienced throughout, how would you say that those experiences have shaped you, as a person?
I'd say kind of what shaped me is, there's been a few things, but the main ones would be kind of mentors. Like, I've always I've had people that I can lean on for different advice, people with different perspectives, and those that possess different skills than myself that I can lean on and get those different perspectives. But also, leaders that are in different points of their careers and different industries that they can share their knowledge and I can learn from. I think having mentors is so important. And then I'd say another thing that shaped me was a book that was recommended by one of the senior mentors that I will go to get advice from, is The 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell. I absolutely love this book, and I probably couldn't have read it at a more perfect time in my career, because John talks about developing as a leader, through those different levels, and how it's much like a voyage, and that was really relatable to me at the time, and it's something that I use now. As he talks about how to get to the pinnacle of leadership. So and just understanding yourself first, your weaknesses and your strengths, and kind of reading that was when I was kind of really worked on that self-advocation piece. And then lastly would probably just be mistakes. I've made good mistakes, bad mistakes, like, but mistakes like have shaped me, and I'm a firm believer in, you know, you learn more when things go wrong necessarily than when they go right. So kind of, if you don't take the risks, then how do you know as a leader if they're going to come through? But I've used kind of every experience in my career as an opportunity to learn, but definitely some mistakes have shaped me.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, you know, we're not going to learn without the mistakes, so can completely relate to that. Okay, so what kind of recommendations do you have for leaders to stay ahead of the curve, you know, to beat this and to, you know, to empower women in business? What are your thoughts on that?
I would say kind of the biggest one is definitely going to be your DE&I strategy. I think, you know, there's been a huge emphasis strategically of companies looking at their workforce and the diversity of them. So we're definitely progressing in the right way, but there's still, you know, leaders in the business that still don't recognise what values it brings to the table. So making sure, you know, everyone's aware. Kind of the effectiveness of organisations is building, you know, truly diverse and inclusive teams, and, you know, the appointment of diverse leadership, and kind of the commitment of developing diverse future leaders. And this is certainly going to differentiate organisations over time. There just really needs to be representation in your workforce, and kind of, if there isn't, you're going to lose your top performers because they're not going to feel represented in that company. They're not going to be able to relate themselves and aspire to the leaders of your company. I kind of, everything tells us that the more psychological safety and trust in teams creates better work products and more, you know, resilient colleagues, which is so integral to the recruitment space, and essentially, you know, enjoyable work and more of a fun environment. I'd say kind of the second one for me would be kind of the investment into continuous learning. I think this one was a big thing for me, and certainly when I read that book, is kind of, you know, the key takeaways in knowing, you know, how, you know, I had to focus on myself so that I could support others to do the same, and then your team will be able to grow. I think, you know, putting that into some leaders sometimes will put an emphasis on positional power, but if you're not personally growing, your highest performers will outgrow you. No one's ever the finished article. So if you can always dedicate yourself to continuous learning, your company's going to continue to innovate. And then just effective. My last one would be the effective and motivational kind of goal setting. Kind of, if you can teach people, you know, if you can teach teams and you can coach your teams to how to plan and to set goals, and, you know, helping them with executing that plan, then they're going to have a more rewarding career. You need to be able to listen to them and promote them, but it's essentially about them, and it's not about, you know, us. And kind of, you really need to identify their motivations, their passions, and, you know, talk about those short, mid and long-term goals. We use kind of OKRs at Energize, and there hasn't been a bigger influence on the business over the last 3 years since they started running the OKRs, and it's going to help deliver growth in revenue and the development of energizers. But, you know, most importantly, it's driven, you know, change for the business that's positively affected everyone. So I'd say that effective and motivational goal setting is having that emphasis is so important.
Yeah, no, agree. And the OKRs and the goal setting, you know, I had a conversation with Mel about this yesterday during a meeting, and it's something that massively motivates me personally as well. So yeah, I think they're just, you know, they're hugely important for the business, but also for individuals as well. So yeah, some amazing advice there. Okay, I've got to ask this one just because you know that we love an inspirational quote at Energize. Have you got any inspirational quotes? Have you got a favourite? And if so, what is it?
So I wouldn't say I have a favourite quote. I'd kind of, this probably depends based on my mood, but I have ones that I kind of stuck in the head, shall we say, and ones that have, if I'm asked on the hot spot, I can remember. But there's definitely been phases in my life where some quotes have been more motivational than others, which obviously is natural. But there's one from John Maxwell's book that I loved, which is do not take the agenda that someone else has mapped out for your life. And this one really related to me, because I've had a very, like, a voyage, but like I've had mistakes, but I've made great mistakes that I've made, took inherent risks that have paid out, and some that necessarily haven't. But I've set myself goals, and I've mapped out the way that I want my life to go, and that one really resonated for me. And then I'd say just the one that I used to kind of always speak about, and I can't remember to this day who told me this. Well, I was a lot younger. It's just work to live, not live to work. And I think that one's so important, because we spend most of the time at work, so this passion will come through everything. If you can come to work and happy and passionate, and just making sure that you're enjoying what you're doing.
Yeah, love those, absolutely love those. Okay, so finally, what would you say, any advice that you'd give to someone starting out in the industry? What's your take on that?
I'd say that anyone starting out in the industry, or starting out obviously in recruitment, I'd say can just work hard. And I know that's just easy said than done, but kind of with this job, it's just a lot of it is about grit and determination. And I've the reason I feel that I've been successful is because I never gave or took an excuse, and I saw those failures as an opportunity to learn. If you just work hard, this job, it will come around. And I'd say my advice probably would be those that are new to leadership is be a coach, and just kind of communication. As leaders, it's our most essential skill, and kind of your ability to adapt your communication styles, and understanding the people that you're coaching, what is their learning style, how can I adapt, how can I treat everyone differently, but also personalize your style so that you're going to have the best platform to be successful.
Yeah, okay, amazing, thank you so much. And hopefully there'll be some useful tips taken from this today. But yeah, cool.
Thank you, Emily.